everybody, Backyard Bullion here. Welcome to this week's Ponderous Wednesday, where I take a thought-provoking and interesting topic and have a good old ramble about it here on YouTube to stimulate some interesting discussion down in the comments section below. Now this week we're going to be talking about a very interesting topic, to my mind anyway, which is how weighty silver is compared with gold. And I guess the overarching question here is physical silver worth it if you are a high budget investor, if you're a serious investor, or if you're going to be planning on stacking silver, physical silver, I think is the important thing to remember here, for a very long time. Is it even worthwhile? Is having this much bulky weight of silver practical, possible? How are you going to store it? All of those types of questions I want to raise today to get you guys thinking about, because it's something which I see a lot of people who start stacking silver. They start buying silver, they buy a lot of silver, and then they suddenly realize the silver's quite heavy and silver's quite bulky compared with its value. So I think of it in terms of a kind of volume to size to weight to value ratio. You know, you've got a 100-ounce bar here, and this, by the way, you probably recognize the 5 100-ounce bars we've got here. I'm taking advantage of the fact that I've got them for pretty much one day only whilst I ship them, before I ship them off to the buyer in the USA. So I'm getting another video out here, so you may well have seen these a month ago, but I wanted to film this video, get that out there for that kind of video stock for the future. But my point is that, you know, 5 of these 100-ounce bars here, I've got represented the equivalent value of gold at spot prices at the time of filming. You know, this video's planned to go out about a month after I filmed it, so God knows what the silver prices and gold prices are going to be by then. But at the time of filming, this is a rough representation of what each 100-ounce bars is worth, and it's 1.25 ounces of gold, which is a ridiculous, you know, weight difference, and weight is an important thing here to focus on. And that's the first thing that I want to talk about, because when I bought these silver bars, when I purchased them in person and walked back to my car with them slung over my shoulder in a bag, it was heavy, let me tell you. I had 4 of them at that time, and that was 12.5 kilos of silver. And if anybody's ever tried walking with 12.5 kilo bags, you know that it's quite heavy. It's manageable, don't get me wrong. I mean, it was quite it was hard, but it was easy to do in the grand scheme of things. But it was heavy stuff, and that is just 400 ounces. And I know 400 ounces seems like a lot of silver, and it is, don't get me wrong, it's worth, you know, these 4 bars are about 5.5 plus £1,000 worth. But is that actually a great deal of money? Well, no, not really in the grand scheme of things. So for me, you know, stacking for the future, stacking for my kind of pension, as I have said a number of times before, you know, I've got a certain budget which I will put into precious metals each and every month, and that will, of course, end up being a sizable pot of precious metals in 30 years' time. You know, if you just got to do simple maths, if you save 10 ounces a month, that's 120 ounces a year. If you save for 30 years, that's going to be maths I can't even do very quickly. You know, we're going to be talking like 10 years would be 1,200 ounces, so 30 years would be 3,600 ounces of silver. So imagine 36 of these 100-ounce bars. Now that's all fine and well if you've got the space, if you've got a safe big enough, if you've got the muscle and brawn to move all of that around, but it's not necessarily very practical. You know, I talk on my channel a lot about how I don't necessarily view, you know, apocalyptic scenarios as very likely, and let's be honest, if a World War III breaks out or something like that, the vast majority of people on this planet are not going to be around. So I don't have any aspirations for being that kind of post-World War III apocalyptic barter king with all of my gold and silver. I don't invest in it for that. I'm not saying that if you do invest in gold and silver for those reasons that you are wrong to do so. That is your own personal choice, and I'm not going to disparage your decisions on that side of things. But for me, it's just not something that factors into my day-to-day thinking and, you know, planning and strategy when it comes to precious metals. I invest in it to save for my pension, to preserve my wealth for the future. And, you know, in those apocalyptic scenarios, lugging around all of this amount of silver, certainly if you've been saving for 30 years, is just going to be impractical. You're going to need a, you know, a very strong home base. And I know a lot of you perhaps do have that, and that's fine, that's great, and that's what you want to do. But for Joe Bloggs, you know, average person who stacks in silver, certainly in the UK, that's not what we stack for, that's not why we stack, so it doesn't really factor into our mentality. So all that we have then is just a very large pile of very heavy things which we have to move around. And if we move house, for example, and we've got 1,000 ounces of silver, that's actually quite a lot of silver to move, and it takes quite a lot of energy and effort. It will certainly factor into the way that you maybe want to move if you want to use a removal company or things like that. Of course, you don't want to necessarily have a bag or box with 1,000 ounces of silver that a removal van is going to do, so you have to do it yourself. You have to do it covertly. That's not necessarily going to be that practical. Whereas if you've got something like here, the 500 ounces of silver, and you want to move that, it's pretty easy to do this, granted. But if you've got, 10 of these layers of silver, if you've got 50 of these bars out on the table, it's going to be very difficult. So instead, you would perhaps be better investing in gold, because gold is incredibly valuable when it's compared with silver. It's difficult to say that, because you've got here 5 plus 1.25, so 6.25 ounces of gold here. This weighs something like 240 grams, something like that. Very, very light compared with the 15 odd kilos here. You can put these in your pocket. You can just stack them up, put them in your pocket, and you're good to go. I can pick all of this up with one hand without any problem whatsoever, and I'm good to go. Can't do that with the silver bars. If somebody, for example, in where I live right now, smashed through my windows trying to burgle the house and I had the chance to run away and escape, I could quickly pick up these gold coins and run away. Could definitely not do that with the silver. One thing I suppose that the silver would be good as, I could pick it up and throw it at the assailant. It might do some significant damage if it landed on his foot or something. Can't do that with a 1 ounce gold coin. But, my point is still that it is a very, very dense, heavy silver metal object that you are not going to be able to move very easily. And that's something to consider as well when you're looking to sell your silver in the future. If you've bought a monster box, say, of 500 coins and you want to sell that, how are you going to post it to wherever you're going to sell it to? If you're going to be posting it to a private seller, that's got to be factored into the price. Something like that would weigh, so 500 ounces of silver on its own weighs over 15 kilos. Then you've got the weight of the box, weight of the capsule, weight of the tubes and everything in the box. So I think a whole monster box weighs something like 17 kilos, something like that. It's very, very weighty. And in the UK, that would cost something like £90 to send to somebody. And I know that maybe doesn't sound like a lot of money, but at the end of the day, it really is, something to factor in. Because if you had that much value in gold, you could just send it in one parcel and it would be a lot less. It would be, maybe £25, £30, depending on the insurance level that you want. And, that's something to factor in for sure. You may be going to get a lower profit margin from, a very heavy bulk piece of silver, just from the shipping side of things alone. So that's definitely something to factor in. Of course, space and volume is something to factor in as well. If you're saving for 30 years and you're buying, even if you're on a small budget, maybe it's okay. But I started this video by talking about whether or not silver is something that's actually tangible to invest in physically for somebody on a high budget. And if you're perhaps like the chap in America who bought these 5 100-ounce bars, and you have a very large budget of silver, and perhaps you're saving 100 ounces of silver a month, then you're going to have 1,200 ounces of silver a year. 30 years, you're going to have 36,000 ounces of silver. That's a lot of silver. 36,000 ounces. That's maths I can't even do. In fact, let's just get my calculator open and work out how many kilos that is. So 36,000 ounces times 31.1. That's a million ounces of silver. Wait, am I doing my maths right? So we've got 36,000 ounces times 31.1 grams divided by 1,000. There we go. So it's 1,120 kilos of silver. You see, it's maths I can't even do. It's weight that I can't even get my head around. I've got out on the table here 15 kilos. 15 kilos. Imagine another 1,100 kilos of it. It's just not going to be practical. You're going to have significant safes. You're going to have to maybe think about investing in strong rooms or buying Fort Knox or something. It's just, that when you get into that kind of weight volume, it really is not very practical. And then when you divide that by let's call it 80, which is the gold-silver ratio at the moment, then you're going to get around 14. So 14 kilos of silver. Now 14 kilos of gold. 14 kilos is still a heavy old thing to walk around with. But boy, oh boy, is that a lot less. You can pick that up and walk around with it on your own. You can't do that with 1,100 kilos of silver. So definitely something to factor in. Now, does that mean that you should not buy silver? You should avoid silver as a long-term savings mechanism? Well, I do not think that's a good idea at all. I do think silver is a great thing to buy. I think it's certainly something to have as part of that investment in the future. And for me anyway, as my humble old self, my old stacking strategy and pension saving strategy very much is using silver as that tool to get more gold for that long-term pension pot. So I, of course, will still invest in silver, and I'll buy silver, and then when the price is right, I will sell that silver, and with those proceeds, I will most likely fuel more gold. So the silver which I'm buying at the moment is basically gold in waiting. It is waiting for me to purchase that gold and to convert it into gold, rather than using it just solely as that saving mechanism and potential, I don't know, barter tool for the future. Now, a lot of you out there will stack for that apocalyptic scenario, that economic collapse scenario. That's not something that factors into my thinking. It obviously is great if it happens. Well, I say it's great if the world ends. You know, if that situation were to happen, I do have obviously precious metals, and I do think that those will play a factor into things. But depending on the scenario, I just don't think that it's going to be relevant, because let's be honest, if there's a World War III or even an economics fiat collapse, if the pound or the dollar just disappeared overnight, there'd be global, there'll be global unrest, there'll be riots, there'd be looting, there'd be, murders, deaths, everything would be, coming to a standstill. Electricity would probably stop, water supplies would stop. It's, metals are not the thing that's going to keep you alive in that scenario. It's what metals will have the value of after that, if you were to survive it, is why I, think that could have value, but it's not the way that I think into my stacking strategy. So that is it. That is all I have to really say on the matter. Silver is very heavy, is I guess the conclusion of this video. And if you are thinking about investing lots of money into silver over a period of time, definitely worth thinking about how you're going to go about doing that, how you're going to go about storing and stacking all of this, and what type of silver you're going to get. Of course, one of the advantages of getting these 100-ounce bars is they do take up less volume than 100 1-ounce coins, just because of the way that the bar is made. It's very compact, whereas with a tube of coins, you've got the tube to factor in, so volume becomes a factor there. So I'd love to know your opinions, though. It is obviously something which might split opinions, so please, if you are going to comment down below, I would love to hear your thoughts and opinions on this, but do so respectfully. I'm not here to disparage your own opinions on the subject, but I would love at the same time to hear what you have to say about it. If you like this video and you like the way that I presented this and it's got you thinking about ponderous topics, then please hit that thumbs up button. And if you've got a ponderous topic of your own that you'd like to suggest to put in the pool for future videos, then do let me know. Otherwise, if you would like to see future videos like this, then please hit the subscribe button, hit the alarm bell if you'd like to get notifications. Otherwise, that is all I have to say. Have a fantastic week. Thank you so much for watching, and please make sure you like, share, comment, and subscribe for more.